up, y'all, and welcome to the Jack Vita Show. I am your host, Jack Vita, and today is November 2nd, 2019. It's our week and a half late NBA season preview. Had promised this a few weeks ago, finally getting around to it. It's been a busy schedule with these Major League Baseball playoffs and the World Series and all this other stuff going on, all these other sporting events that I've had to watch. But baseball's over and it's time to start looking at some of these winter sports. So today have a really cool, really fun podcast planned, and we are going to be going in depth previewing this NBA season. I've got a great guest joining me right now. He joined me over the summer. We did a little bit on NBA free agency and off-season happenings and broke down some of the moves that were occurring by some of these teams. And now we're going to project how these teams are going to do. Are you ready for this? Peter Funk, how are you doing?
I'm great. It's great to be back on the podcast. It really is.
It's great to have you. You have had the most downloaded episode of the year, so hopefully dip into that pool of followers that you got this episode.
For sure. Absolutely. Anything to get you some more views, man. You deserve it.
Thanks, Peter. Peter is also grad assistant with the Valparaiso men's basketball team, and I got to see him a couple weeks ago for their first preseason game.
Yeah, you always surprise us. You just kind of it's always you pop up, and it's always great to see you. It really is.
Yeah, it was really fun seeing you guys. Unfortunately, I was on my way back from Michigan, and I gotten up at like 6 a.m. that morning, and it was I was up early, and I was not able to stay for that whole game. I had to leave at halftime. Sometimes, Peter, when you are tired and you're like, okay, I got to drive 2 more hours, you're like, I shouldn't wait too late to do this for my own personal safety.
No, I fully understand you on that one. You got to do what you got to do.
But hey, I'm looking forward to college basketball season, which I will be recording a preview for sometime over the next few days. That will be dropping this week as well.
Oh, man, I'm definitely checking out that one for sure.
And I look forward to coming to some more games this year.
Good. Can't wait to see you, man.
All right, Peter, let's get into it. So Peter and I are going to break down some of these teams and preview this season. And we are going to have a little help because we have seen a little bit of basketball. There has been some news. There have been some injuries, which we will talk about today. And that is going to alter the way that some of these teams may have been projected, but I don't know if it'll be too drastic. Most notably Golden State. That's one that we will definitely be getting into pretty soon here. But really, Peter, I don't feel like we're cheating too much. It's only been about 10 days or so of basketball.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. And I mean, I don't think we've learned a whole lot about these teams yet. A lot of it's what kind of we've already expected, other than I guess what you mentioned with Golden State. But a lot of it is, a lot still remaining to be seen with pretty much all the teams in the NBA. So I agree with you. It's really not too late to do a season preview.
Good stuff. All right, Peter. So here's how this is going to work. Peter and I have grouped these teams into 3 different categories. And we're going to start at the very beginning with the bottom of the pack. These are the teams that neither of us see as teams that we think will sniff the playoffs. These teams are really going to be in contention for that number 1 overall pick, or at least probably they're probably like about 7 to 10 of these teams that we will probably talk about as a top 10 picks.
Yep, I would agree with you on that.
Yeah, so these will be the teams that will be in the top 10 most likely next season. Peter, let's start in the Eastern Conference. Who are those teams that you are looking at that you expect not to really, maybe they might be a little interesting and fun to watch on TV if you catch them sometime, maybe when they're playing a game on TNT or whatever, but Who are those teams for you that you don't see standing much of a chance this year?
Yeah, well, the first team that definitely comes to mind, and this is kind of an unfortunate segue because this is the team that I would not check out even if they are on TNT, because they're, in my opinion, really just not very fun to watch, and that would be the New York Knicks. I think the New York Knicks are probably the right now the least talented team in the NBA. They have a really good young piece with R.J. Barrett, who I really like a lot. I think will be a good player, but I think when you talk about the conversation for the number one overall pick, I think you got to throw the New York Knicks right up there. This pains me to say this, but I'm going to throw my Cleveland Cavaliers in there as well. I think they're going to be better than I think people think they're going to be, but that's still only about maybe 30 wins, 35 wins, not really in contention for the playoffs. There's probably some Bulls fans on here too listening. They have an interesting young core, but I don't know if they have the leader of that young core. What I mean by that is like the guy that you can kind of point to and say, this is the face of the franchise. Lauri Markkanen's great. Wendell Carter's great. Chris Dunn, Kobe White. They have a great young core, but I can't. They've had that unfortunate luck where they've had kind of like 6 through 10 as opposed to 1 through 5 where like the blue chip franchise changing players are. Like what happened when they got Derrick Rose. So maybe this will be their year. Maybe they get some luck and they get a top 3 pick and they can get a real mover and shaker in there. I'll throw the Charlotte Hornets in there as well. Losing Kemba Walker was definitely tough, and replacing Kemba Walker with Terry Rozier isn't really really filling the void. And the last team, and again, this a little bit remains to be seen. I'll throw the Washington Wizards there as well. If John Wall maybe has a good season, Bradley Beal has a good season, but the inconsistency, they've lost some talent. They're a little bit younger. They're probably that 4th team that I would throw in there as well. But yeah, that would be the 4 teams that I would really kind of write off in the Eastern Conference.
All right, so let's talk a little bit about these teams. Yeah. I want to start with your Cleveland Cavaliers. I like this young core.
I do too.
I think this backcourt of Garland and Sexton has the potential to be a little bit, maybe not quite Lillard and McCollum. It might be a little too early to say that, but maybe there's a little bit of De'Aaron Fox and Buddy Hield there.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I really like their backcourt as well, but I think it's going to take them a little bit longer. I think they're 2 guys that, prior to coming to Cleveland, they've been ball dominant guys. They both played on college teams where they were the blue chip prospect. They were the guy. Darius Garland's obviously coming off the injury, and he's looked fine so far. But I agree with you. I really like what the Cavs are doing, and that makes me excited. But I still think they're probably 2-3 years away from competing for the playoffs. But I have not disagreed with the move that they have made so far. Hiring John Beilein, I think, was great. Obviously drafting Sexton and drafting Darius Garland have been great selections as well. So I agree with everything they're doing, but obviously the roster was kind of left pretty decimated when LeBron left. And so I think, these things just take time. I still think they're probably 2-3 years away.
Yes, and I would agree with you on that. I think all these teams that you have listed are in this category. I would agree with you. I just think out of these teams, I think they're going to end up being the most fun to watch. It will be interesting to see, though. Do you think they trade Kevin Love this year?
It is interesting to see as well. And I don't know. Because my hunch says that if they were looking to move him, I think they already would have moved him. But I still think that they signed him to a long-term extension. They've kind of still invested in him when he was hurt most of last year. So I still think that they feel that he has some value in their future. Because my feeling says that if they were looking to kind of rebuild, start fresh, get some pieces for him, I think they would have already moved him already. Obviously, things could change based on how the season goes, but as of right now, my gut says I think they hold on to him.
Yeah, and we'll see. It'll be interesting. I mean, maybe a team like Portland could use another guy like that.
True. important. I mean, that would be huge for them, really. But you're right. Some team could come along and see a dire need for Kevin Love, and yeah, we'll see. We'll see.
To get the right offer.
Right. Right. Exactly. Exactly.
So the Bulls are an odd team because Kobe White, in his first few I shouldn't say starts because he's been coming off the bench.
Yeah.
His first few games, he's looked very good. He's put up 20 on more than one occasion and has really looked good, and he's still coming off the bench. I don't really know what head coach Jim Boylan is really going for with some of this stuff that he's teaching his team in terms of, I don't know if you saw this, Peter, but they have punch cards. They have to punch into work every day.
Huh. Yeah.
It seems like a football coach trying to coach an NBA roster.
Yeah, and that never usually goes well. So, you know, we'll see. We'll see. I have a lot of respect for Fred Hoiberg, and they didn't feel that he was the right guy to lead. So, but again, with the Bulls, I think they're very similar to the Cavs. I think they're probably 2 or 3 years away at best of competing. They have a lot of good pieces, but I don't know who you point to on that roster and say, he's the best player, he's the franchise player, he's the guy. I don't think you can point to any of those guys right now and say that that's who that is. And the NBA, it's really, really hard to win when you don't have that. It's really, really hard to win.
I think it'll be interesting to see what kind of a step Markkanen might take this year in his third year. I like him a lot. I think Kobe White is going to be interesting to see if he does get into that starting rotation. Maybe those two guys become that the two guys that you can build your team around. But other than that, I mean, you got Zach LaVine who can score but doesn't play a whole lot of defense. And I do think that they're still going to be somewhere in the top 10 picks next year. They might not. I don't know, though. They might win too many games.
Who knows? Maybe they surprise us. But, yeah.
I mean, they might win too many games to get too high of a pick.
Worst. Get like the 10 to 14 to where you're not in the playoffs. Yeah. You're not in the top 10. Yeah, those are frustrating.
Yeah. Okay. Washington Wizards. Did they just lock up Bradley Beal?
2-year deal. So kind of, sort of. Okay. It was the max, but again, I feel like we've been waiting on the Wizards to really be a force in the Eastern Conference. I think they've kind of gone in a downward trajectory. I think that they're kind of the best of the four of the teams that I just named, but they've been disappointing, and they've lost a bunch of guys and haven't really brought in any new impact players. And John Wall's had his injury issues, and I love John Wall and I love Bradley Beal, but it might be time for them to kind of turn the corner with the franchise and maybe make some moves. But to me, I don't trust that either one of those two enough to really lead them to a playoff run. But I will say they're probably the best of the four.
You actually listed 5: Cavs, Hornets, Bulls, Wizards, Knicks.
Oh, excuse me. Yeah, probably best of the five. Best of the five of those teams that I listed.
Anyone interesting on the Hornets to keep an eye on this year?
I mean, I want to say Terry Rozier, just to see how he comes along, but really, nobody really comes to mind. I think the Hornets, unfortunately, when you lose your franchise player, you got to try to go out and find a new one, and I think that's kind of where they are right now. And losing Kemba was tough, and they got a little bit of work to do, unfortunately.
How about the Knicks? Anyone you like there? Keep an eye on. I mean, I like Dennis Smith Jr.
Yeah, he's pretty explosive. RJ Barrett got a lot of flack for maybe being a ball hog or demanding the spotlight with Zion, but I think he's really talented and he's got a great mindset, and he's definitely the most talented player on the Knicks roster. So I would say RJ Barrett to see how he does in his first NBA season is probably the most interesting to me, mostly just because the Knicks are a 25-win team at best, and we'll see if anybody comes and stands out for the Knicks, but I'm not a huge fan of their roster, unfortunately.
Well, what's odd is they went out and they scooped up like 4 different power forwards.
Yeah.
In free agency. They got Portis, Marcus Morris, Randall, and Taj Gibson.
Yeah, very, all just kind of like a hodgepodge of guys right there, and some tough players, but yeah, just kind of a random mix of guys, which is kind of how I feel about their roster overall. And maybe they throw it together, maybe they do okay, but I'm not too optimistic about their season coming up.
All right, let's move over to this category in the Western Conference, Peter. Who are the teams that you see as the other bottom teams now in the West?
Yeah, I'll start with the Kings, and the Kings are intriguing, like you mentioned earlier with De'Aaron Fox and Buddy Hield, but I still think they're probably a couple of years away. I'll keep the Phoenix Suns in there. I think the Suns will be improved, but we got to see how their young pieces develop. We'll see how DeAndre Ayton develops. We'll see how if Devin Booker can take that next step, and then I'll throw the Oklahoma City Thunder in there. They were in a tough position with Paul George, having to move him, but moving him and Russell Westbrook, I think they've with all the draft picks and all the stuff that they've accumulated from the Rockets and the Clippers, I think they're ready to kind of take it slow with the rebuild of their organization. And then the Memphis Grizzlies, who again, they also have some good young pieces, but I still think Jaren Jackson and John Morant need a year or two to develop, so I think I can kind of write them off. And yeah, that would be my bottom teams.
Suns, Grizzlies, Kings, just 3 of them,
and the Thunder. So we got 4.
Oh, and the Thunder, yeah, that's 4. Okay, I like the Kings actually. They won 39 games last year. And I think they're heading in the right direction. I would not put them in this bottom category. I think they're going to win more games. Now, maybe the problem is the West is just going to be so tough, and there's so many solid teams. But I would probably put them in the next tier that we're going to talk about. But I like Bagley. I like those 2 guards. And they added a couple of veterans like Ariza, brought back Harrison Barnes. I think this team could... I would not be surprised if they end up sneaking into the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, I still think I'd like to see De'Aaron Fox and Buddy Hield and Bagley develop a little more. I think for them to make the playoffs, I think one of those 3 needs to be an all-star. I think De'Aaron Fox is probably the closest. But you brought up some great points about, they do have a lot to be very optimistic about. And, maybe that's something we learned throughout the season. Maybe that we learned just how good, this young core is. And maybe they did. Maybe you're right. Maybe they're the team that kind of sneaks into the playoffs. But for me personally, I would like to see a little more from De'Aaron Fox or Buddy Hield. Maybe one of them becomes an all-star. And I think if one of them becomes an all-star, I think they have an absolutely great shot at making the playoffs.
I think they picked up a nice underrated center here that quietly puts up numbers. I'm talking about Dwayne Dedmon. I like him.
Yeah, he does. I'm sure a lot of your listeners probably don't really know who that is. He did a nice job with the Magic. He did a nice job with the Spurs. He's going to be sneaky.
Atlanta too.
Yeah, he is a sneaky good center. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah. Where's Cully Stein now? Where'd he go?
The Warriors. Well, I'm sure we'll get to them very soon here, though.
Yeah, so it's interesting because the Warriors now, with Steph Curry hurting his wrist just a few nights ago, and he's going to miss 3 months, a lot of people are expecting them to tank, and it's really interesting to look at them because you could really put them in here. I think you could put them in the next tier. I don't see them as a top-tier team anymore. Clay's going to miss the entire season. We know that now. And really, I guess we'll see what ends up happening with D'Lo, because D'Lo could end up being a guy that maybe they trade.
Yeah, the Warriors definitely are probably the most interesting team we'll talk about in terms of the categories we're putting them in. And I'm not quite ready to put them into the no playoff category just quite yet. It's just hard because they're the defending champs, but they got a lot of stories.
No, they're not anymore, Peter.
Oh, I'm sorry. You're right. They're not the defending champs. Excuse me. I'm just so used to them just being the Cavs. Yeah, you're right. But I'm not ready to kind of say that there's no chance. But they got a lot of storylines going on this year, and they'll be a very interesting team to follow for sure.
Okay, so let's talk about a couple other topics. Thunder, Chris Paul in this situation, it just feels so weird.
It does. It really does, because it kind of feels like he's like been sent there kind of meaningless. Like, like we're done with Chris Paul, or he's kind of turned the page in his career. He's kind of an old man now. It's very weird. I agree with you seeing him in this setting.
It's at the point where it's like people. I was listening to one of my friends who just joined me on the last podcast, Chad Votherine. He's got the Cheap Seats podcast. And on his podcast, Chad accidentally goofed up and just said, Chris Paul, he's on the Heat now. It's like that trade got talked about so much as a potential trade destination that we've now tricked ourselves into thinking that is where Chris Paul is. It's not. I don't think that was a bad mistake. I think that could be a common error from other people as well.
Right. Because you were just kind of, it's hard to follow. It's hard to follow that he's on the Thunder now. It just feels bizarre.
Yeah, out of place.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm gonna give you a guy that I like on the Thunder to keep an eye out for this year. You want to guess who it is?
I think I kind of know who it is, but I'll let you say.
Shai Gilgeous-Alexander.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. He is definitely something to keep their eye on. The Thunder knew what they were doing in that trade. He was the only player they got. They got a ton of draft picks, but that was a very smart decision. He had a great rookie season. He's had a good start to the season right now. He's absolutely something to keep an eye on.
I was very fortunate. I had to miss my NBA fantasy draft, and I saw no one drafted him. So he was.
Oh my goodness!
I picked him up on waivers, and we have like a six.
What?
Yeah, we have a 16-man deep league.
And nobody picked him up.
Nobody picked him up, and he's been putting up numbers for me in these first 2 weeks.
There you go.
I like his game a lot.
I do too. I can't believe that happened. It's a 16-person league.
I know, right?
That's unbelievable.
Ja Morant in Memphis, potential Rookie of the Year candidate, right? Especially with Zion out.
Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely. He's definitely going to be up there, no doubt about that. And he's an explosive player, extremely fun to watch. I love everything that he does. But I just don't know if the Grizzlies are. First, you can't rely on a rookie in most cases to lead you to the playoffs. That really just doesn't happen. LeBron, Kobe, they didn't make the playoffs their first year. And
Carmelo did.
I think that.
Believe it or not.
Wow, that is crazy. But I think the Grizzlies as a team kind of need a year, especially moving on from Mike Conley. I think they probably need a year or two to get themselves back into contention. But I love everything they've done. Ja Morant's a phenomenal talent to build around. Jaren Jackson has been very productive so far. They're going in the right direction, but as we see in the NBA, these things they take time sometimes trying to develop younger players.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the other question you can ask with Memphis is we talk about some of these teams like the Kings. The Kings are a team that's trying to get into the playoffs this year. Memphis, I don't think that's the case. I think they'd be happy picking high these next couple of years to give Ja some weapons and a nice young core to build around.
Yeah, no, I agree with you on that, and they're probably looking at the long haul here, which is why I feel like we can kind of write them off.
And the Suns, quietly one of the most dysfunctional organizations. Now, maybe not from a leadership standpoint, but just as an organization that's been stuck for several years now, post Steve Nash. It's weird.
Well, I never am a fan of firing a coach after 1 year.
Yeah.
I'm never a fan of that. Monty Williams is one of the best people you'll find. Their new coach, but even so, I think it's hard for a team structure to fire a coach after a year. But they felt they did what they felt was best for the team and for the organization. But I feel so bad for them. Specifically because I think if they had just gotten Ja Morant, they would not be in this category because they really got some nice pieces around them, but they just don't have the guy that kind of makes it all go.
Yeah, they need a point guard.
Yeah, and Ricky Rubio has just been too inconsistent for me to say that they're going to be able to turn the corner. And so if they had John Morant would really have been the perfect piece to kind of round out this roster and actually put together a potential playoff contender. They didn't get that, and so I think they're still just an incomplete team. DeAndre Ayton has not really quite lived up to his number one pick status. Not that I think.
Well, he's only played 1 year.
Right, so I don't think he's a bust or anything, but I think he still has left some to be desired.
He's a work in progress.
He is, absolutely. So I think, again, they're still probably a couple of years away. And, yeah, you're right. They've just been kind of stuck. They haven't really found a way to turn the corner since Steve Nash, and they've just kind of been in the same spot and kind of treading water a little bit, unfortunately.
Yeah, and I like Ricky Rubio. I just like him a lot more in a situation on a team that has more pieces that are more cemented, like right. What the Jazz had. I don't think he's the answer in this instance. I think they need an upgrade at that position in order for this team to take another step. It's interesting. They dumped Josh Jackson. They gave up on him after 2 years.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. It is an interesting decision to do that to a top 4 pick. But I obviously don't know what's going on, but behind closed doors or what he was like to deal with, and there might be some stuff there that maybe we don't know. But it's that those are kind of things right there, but that make you that stick you in one place and don't help you advance when you miss out on when you get a chance like to get the 4th pick in the draft and it doesn't work out. That obviously that kind of makes you stick a little bit.
Yeah, and a pretty talented draft class at that as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that actually will make that's an interesting story for Memphis, is if he could be a good reclamation project there.
Yeah, that would be nice. I'd love to see him do well, but maybe Phoenix just wasn't the spot for him, and maybe Memphis will work out better. And he wowed everybody his year at Kansas. He's definitely a unique and special talent. So we will see for sure.
All right, let's talk about the next tier of teams in the Eastern Conference. These are the teams that most likely are teams on the rise. They're solid teams that are going to be contending for a playoff spot. Maybe in some cases they could be a team that has fallen from last year, but I think for the most part, this is a category with teams that look like they're on the up and will be interesting to watch. Who do you see in this category as good teams, but at least solid teams to good teams that could be in playoff contention, but not legitimate contenders?
Yeah, well, the first team I'll start with is the Atlanta Hawks. The start to the year and the year that, based on last year, that Trae Young has had has been absolutely phenomenal. He was brought in to be the Steph Curry type player, and he's really lived up to it. He's putting up ridiculous numbers. John Collins is a really good young player that not a lot of people know about, not a lot of people are talking about. They're very well coached. Lloyd Pierce does a great job. They're a team that I don't know if they'll make the playoffs quite yet, but I could see them being 9th, 10th, and I could see them kind of getting a little more attention from people and getting a little more of a following, just because I think Trae Young is a budding superstar. The next team I think would probably be the Miami Heat. I think they're the perfect in contention for the 8th seed because Jimmy Butler has been is somebody that I think could get them to the 8th seed. But again, the story with them has been their rookie Tyler Hero has been putting up really impressive numbers so far, not only in the preseason but and to the start to this season. And their other rookie Kendrick Nunn, who's actually starting at their point guard for them now, is also doing the same thing. And neither Tyler Hero is a late lottery and Kendrick Nunn was undrafted. So they, with those two guys plus Jimmy Butler, they are a very interesting team to watch, and I would not be surprised to see them get the 8th seed. And the other team is probably the Indiana Pacers. I think they're very similar to the Heat, and I know a lot of my friends probably think they're going to do a little bit better. I think they're probably going to be around the 7-8 range. I think they will probably make the playoffs, but it'll probably be around that area once Victor Oladipo gets healthy. And the last team I'll say is probably the Orlando Magic. They're kind of one of those teams, Jack, that I think they've been kind of stuck a little bit too. I think they'll fight for contention. I think they'll be in that mix. I'm not sure if they'll make the playoffs or not, but they're probably that when you talk about a good solid team that should be in contention to make the playoffs. I think they're definitely that team.
Interesting. So, do you know the timetable on Oladipo?
Not off the top of my head, but I can check it out for you.
So I think, Peter, I don't know when he's coming back. If you're able to pull that up, that'd be awesome. But the thing I'd say is I think this team can contend in the East with a healthy Oladipo. I really like this core with him, Sabonis, and Miles Turner. I think Sabonis, who just got extended, could end up being an all-star caliber player. I have always liked his potential. I like him on this roster. He's starting this year, and there's some good weapons on this team. It's a deep roster. I'm interested in seeing how Aaron Holiday does after Darren Collison retired. I think this could end up being a very, very good team. I would see them as a top 5 seeded team in the East, and I think could be a team that surprises some people come playoffs. We saw them go toe-to-toe with your Cavs just 2 years ago. A series that went to 7 games. They really pushed them and gave them the best challenge of those playoffs. I think with a healthy Oladipo, this team can contend.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I really like their young core. My thing is, I think it's actually more to the credit of the Eastern Conference. I think it's a bit deeper and a little more even. And again, the injury to Oladipo might leave some question marks as to whether if they are to contend, he's got to come back and he's got to be the star that he was before he was injured. And I guess that's probably my concern. But I do love Sabonis. Getting Malcolm Brogdon definitely helps.
Yeah.
And I think they absolutely will be in the playoffs. I don't know if I'm ready to put them into that top tier quite yet, but I think I agree with a lot of your points. I think they have a really good young core, and we'll see just how Oladipo does when he comes back.
Sometime in December, most likely.
Yep, that's what I just found too. At least December.
So, I don't know. I think if Oladipo comes back and plays to the level that he has over the last couple of years, or even continues to progress, I think this team could end up being a little similar to, dare I say it, last year's Milwaukee Bucks.
I mean, he's going to have a great year for that to happen. But
yeah,
it's anything's possible,
Yeah. So maybe I'm dreaming a little too much here. Maybe this is a little too much of a hot take. But other than that, I'm on the same page with you about a lot of these teams. I would be I would not be surprised if Atlanta ends up dipping into the other category below them, just in the sense of Trae Young did get injured. It doesn't sound like it's a serious injury, but if a guy like Trae Young ends up getting hurt and has to miss serious time, I wouldn't be surprised if they said, all right, let's try to get another guy in the next draft. Let's try to tank a little more.
Yeah, that's definitely possible.
But they're going to be a fun team. I'm glad you brought up John Collins. He's off to a great start this year. There's some nice weapons there. Cam Reddish is going to be interesting to watch.
Oh yeah, without a doubt.
And they wore, out of all the teams last year, when it comes to alternate uniforms, they wore my favorites. You know what I'm talking about? Did you see the uniforms they wore last year that looked like the old 1970s Philadelphia Phillies uniforms?
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Oh, man. Yeah, those were awesome.
Those were so cool. That was the night that they beat the Lakers, too.
Oh, man, maybe they bring those out again this year. Oh, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, I would love to see that. Like, if that became their regular uniform or, like, their regular alternate that they wore for, like, 30 games this year, that would make me so happy.
Let's cross our fingers. Let's hope, man. Let's hope.
So do you see Toronto as a legitimate contender in this conference?
You know, I do. And the reason I say that is the reason I have them as a contender is I think Pascal Siakam becomes a top 15 player in the NBA this year. I think people underestimate both his trajectory and how much of a contributor he was to that NBA Finals championship. Now, I don't think they will win the East. I don't think they will repeat as champions, but I still have them as probably a top 5 team in the Eastern Conference because I think, you know, even with all that Kawhi Leonard did, to have for them to win it last year was a lot more than Kawhi Leonard, in my opinion, and all those pieces are back. So obviously, I think Kawhi was
not
the
Danny Green.
Right, not Danny Green. But you still have Marc Gasol, Fred VanVleet, Kyle Lowry, and obviously Siakam is the big one. Serge Ibaka is back. Nick Nurse, their coach. So I think the difference in them being the first seed in the East, winning the NBA championship, was Kawhi Leonard. But to say that they're no longer a contender at all, I think feels like we're kind of writing off everything else that contributed to them winning the NBA championship. I think they're probably a second round playoff team at best, but I still have them as probably one of my top 5 teams in the East.
Interesting. Okay, so if you see them as a second round team in the playoffs at best, I guess it just depends on your definition of contender, because I don't see that if that's their ceiling, I don't see that as a contender, but I do think they're going to be good. Yeah,
I mean, I have them in that kind of, I guess when I'm thinking of contender, I think of just kind of the upper echelon of the Eastern Conference, and I still think that they fall in there, I guess. If that makes sense a little bit.
Sure, yeah. Okay, I'll ask you about one other team that you brought up. Orlando Magic, who are you looking to watch this year on that roster?
And I think for Savage, their center.
Yeah.
And then Jonathan Isaac. I mean, he's extremely intriguing. He's 6'10", 6'11" with guard skills. He feels like somebody that I think should be good at some point. He's had a pretty good start to the season, but we'll see. I feel like the Magic are kind of like the Suns. They've kind of been stuck.
Yeah.
And, you know, they're not a terrible team. You know, Fournier and DJ, obviously, you know that those guys are pretty good. And they're not a terrible team where I can say that I'm going to write them off completely. I don't know if they'll be a playoff team, but I think they fit this mold of a solid team. And then maybe Jonathan Isaac has a great season. Maybe Vucevic has a great season, and that kind of catapults them up into the playoffs. But I think they kind of fit this category. They're kind of the defining team of this category.
Yeah, for sure. Do you want to stay in the East, or you want to do this category in the West?
It's your show, man. It's up to you.
Let's stay in the
Whatever
East
works.
while we're here. Okay,
Cool.
so the contenders. That leaves,
Yeah.
you've got Philly, you've got Boston, you've got Toronto, you've got Milwaukee. Anyone else?
I'll throw the Nets in there.
We never listed off the Pistons.
Yeah, I'd probably throw the Pistons probably in that second category. I missed that. That's my bad. You kind of forget about them. They're just kind of there, I'll throw the Nets in that category just because.
We didn't talk about the Nets.
I think they're probably that second category until Kevin Durant comes back. But when Kevin Durant is back, I don't know how you can't put them as a contender, and that could be not at all this season. That could be halfway through the season. That could be at the end of the season. That could be halfway through the first round of the playoffs. At any point that Kevin Durant comes back, they're 100% in my mind a contender. And so, in my mind, I'm under the assumption that he'll be back at some point this season. I could be wrong on that, but and I think the moment that Kevin Durant steps on the court, they are 100% a contender.
I think that he's not going to play this year. Just because, look, I got no sources. Both of us are just guessing at this point. But we saw the danger of him coming back early in last year's playoffs. And I think he's going to want to be cautious. So that's just such a hard injury to come back from.
Yeah, that's true. My concern is that maybe they're going to be the 7th, 8th seed. I think they will make the playoffs because I like Karis LeVert, obviously with having Kyrie Irving, and they're very well coached. They actually have a pretty solid roster they've kind of put together after they were pretty decimated. But I'm thinking if you're the 76ers or you're the Celtics, and you get the Nets in the first round of the playoffs, and you win Game 1, and then Kevin Durant is fully healthy. I think the Nets maybe win that series.
Yeah.
And at that point, I don't know how you cannot put them in. But, maybe you're right. There's obviously that chance that they want to take it easy with the injury, and he can never be the same KD again, and, all those things. But I don't want to not put them in there, and then KD comes back, and then you're like, okay, well, they're definitely a contender now. So
I think it's interesting. I like that you prefaced that and clarified that you don't see them as like an excellent regular season team in terms of a team that's going to win 55 games or anything like that. Right. You see them as a lower seed in the East, but that ceiling is totally there if Durant comes back. So I would agree with that.
Yeah, there you go. I should have started with that.
You're good, man. All right, so let's talk about some of these other teams. Which one would you say that you like the best?
I'll probably put Milwaukee up there. I think I probably like Milwaukee the best, just because I feel like their time is coming. I think Giannis he's obviously winning the MVP. He's solidified himself. They return losing Malcolm Brogdon definitely hurt. But I think the mold of consistency that they have, I think. They're the team that I probably like the best. But I think the Celtics are not very far behind. I think the Celtics, we got to see how their younger players, specifically Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, see how they play this season, how they develop, which is what's holding me back on the Celtics, because I really like Brad Stevens.
Yeah.
I really like Kemba Walker. I really like Gordon Hayward. I like the kind of the culture change of moving on from Kyrie. I like that all a lot. But if they're going to be a title contender, they 100% need this him from his rookie year, and probably a little bit better. And if they have that, I think they win the East. But he's too big of a concern for me right now. And Milwaukee doesn't have as many concerns to me. You kind of know what you're going to get from that roster. They don't have as many doubts, and that's what I think is holding the Celtics back. But I do like all the decisions, everything they've done in the offseason. And so I would probably put the Bucks first, the team I like the most, and the Celtics just behind them.
Yeah, it's like there are several teams here that we both really like, but I don't think there's anyone to absolutely love that we see as a slam dunk team to win.
I completely agree. And that's almost like what's so fun about this is, it's not just Cleveland and Golden State anymore. It's, any of these teams win it, and you don't know that it's going to be Boston. You don't know that it's going to be Milwaukee. It could be anybody. That's what makes it so fun.
And I would be all in on Boston as the number one team if they still had Al Horford.
Yeah.
I love Al Horford.
That was bizarre to me.
I think that's a big loss.
I think it is too. And I really don't know what exactly happened.
I think he's had an opportunity to cash in and get one more big contract, and he took it. That would be my guess.
Yeah. I think he wanted 4 years, and Boston wanted to give him 3. And to me, I just don't know why Boston just wouldn't just say, we'll give you 4.
Yeah.
And, if that's what they decided to do, what they thought was best, I guess. But, I don't know. That was an interesting decision.
Such a stable force for that team. Great clubhouse guy or locker room guy, and a great leader for the roster. And this is a young team. I mean, Gordon Hayward and Kemba Walker are vets, so there is some leadership there. But I thought he was just such a great influence on those young guys, especially when you had some maybe not great influences in that locker room last year.
Who shall remain nameless.
So it's interesting to see. I like Robert Williams. I think he's going to be fun to watch. He's a high-ceiling player, but he has had some issues off the court. There are some questions about maybe work ethic and some of the stuff like that, and just getting into some other trouble. There's some other nice young players on this bench. You and I being Midwest guys who you currently live in Indiana, and I lived in Indiana for a couple of years. I am so excited to watch Carson Edwards and Romeo Langford.
Oh, man. Did you see what he did in the preseason? He had He had eight threes on my calves?
Yeah.
Unbelievable. It'll
be interesting to see what Cantor gives to them, too.
Yeah. I mean, he won't be like Al Horford, but, he's a rim protector. He rebounds. He could score 10, 15 a game, and maybe that's what they need. Maybe if Kemba scoring and Hayward scoring and Tatum scoring, that's probably all they needed. When you lose an interior presence like Horford, I think they did the right thing. I'm just getting a stable, consistent, maybe not a great player, but a consistent, stable center, and that's definitely Enes Kanter.
Yeah, and everyone's favorite bench player this year, Taco Fall.
Oh man, he is. It was funny. They took a picture of him staying next to Enes Kanter, and Enes Kanter is a 7 foot tall dude, big dude, and he looked like a normal height staying next to Taco Fall. I mean, it's unbelievable how tall that man is.
Yeah, that's awesome. So I like this team. I'm curious to see, Jaylen Brown. He just got a big contract extension.
Yeah, it's time to play like it.
Time to play like it. I think Tatum is going to take a step in the right direction this year, and I think he's going to look a lot more like the guy that we saw in the playoffs 2 years ago without Kyrie. And I think without Kyrie being there, it's going to be a great opportunity for him. And I think Hayward can also be a bigger contributor this year than he was last year. He might be slept on a little bit.
Yeah, I think all those are reasons why you got to consider them for the top team. To me, like I said, Tatum and Brown, if they want to win the East, and I fully believe the Celtics can win the East, mostly because of all the points that you just made, they have to be consistent, big time contributors. Because we love Kemba Walker, and he had a great career, but he's never really carried a team that far. So to rely just on him or maybe just on Gordon Hayward, these guys are vets, but they haven't competed for titles before. So really, the more scoring, the more offensive firepower they have, I think obviously will help them more. And I need to see it consistently. And like you said, if Tatum is the same as he was 2 playoffs ago, I think they definitely win the East.
The other thing is, so then we talk about Milwaukee. We could talk I think this is gonna be the 1 seed.
Yeah.
I think they're the best regular season team out of this bunch. But then you wonder, is this gonna happen to Eric Bledsoe every time in the playoffs that he just can't really perform and really deliver? And what's gonna happen with Giannis after he kind of slumped a little bit towards in the second half of that series against Toronto? I mean, Toronto had a historically excellent defensive team last year, and they had Kawhi Leonard, and Kawhi Leonard is no longer in the East anymore. So I don't know. I think there are question marks with all these teams. And you could talk about Philly, and you could like them as maybe a 3 seed and a really, really good team. And Horford, it's going to be interesting to see Horford and Embiid playing together. Horford definitely was much more needed in Boston, but in Philly, he can contribute as a guy that is just a great leader for these young guys on their roster. But at the same time, can I really picture Philly playing in the finals next year? I just don't know. It's so wide open.
Yeah, and that's what makes it so fun. Is all these teams got things that excite you, but then they got some question marks. And you just kind of have the top tier as opposed to like the top team. And it's going to be a fun season. It's going to be a fun playoff because which of these questions are going to be answered or left unanswered, and that's why we got probably the most exciting NBA season we probably had in a long time.
Very long time. The last season that I think was this interesting, and this is here's the thing: ever since the Big Three formed in Miami, and then LeBron went to Cleveland, it seemed like the East has been on lockdown. But the Western Conference for a few years there was excellent before Golden State built their empire.
Yeah.
I look back to the 2015 year, which was the first year that Golden State won the West, and they ended up winning the title that year. I think that year we saw a super competitive West with the Grizzlies, the Mavs, the Spurs, the Clippers, a lot of really, and OKC, of course, Houston, just so many talented, deep teams. And that's what it reminds me that this year is going to be. And that's what it should be, Peter, because going back to when I was a kid, there was always a little bit of hope of an 8 seed could beat a 1 seed, or a 7 seed could beat a 2 seed, but that hasn't been the case in recent years.
Yeah, and it's good that the NBA is kind of moving back toward that, because like you said, it's just it's like, that hope and that excitement as opposed to all right, we'll turn the TV on when it's Cavs Warriors and or it's Heat Spurs, and we can see the two best teams, and until then we know who's going to make it. But this year we have no idea who's going to make it. So it's the anticipation, the excitement, the possible upsets. It's all really exciting.
So I'm going to take you on a little side tangent here, Peter. Are you ready for this?
All right, I'm ready.
Okay. So this is going to be great for the league, which you and I agree on. Something that was interesting, I saw this on Twitter last summer about the numbers for baseball markets, local baseball markets versus local NBA markets. And I don't know if you knew this, Peter, but in 19 markets that had both an NBA and an MLB team, 16 of them, baseball was popular by a wide margin in terms of TV ratings.
Really?
Yeah.
Really interesting.
Very interesting. So what I have been determining lately, and I think part of it was a product of the two teams owning each conference, or one team owning each conference. I think it lost a lot of luster and appeal to the local market teams. Now, NBA has done great on a national level, and I think people like to look at, okay, NBA viewership was down last year, what's going on? MLB World Series viewership was down this year, what's going on there? I think part of it is just the fact that, look, people are cutting the cord, and there are a lot of things going on there. But what I have determined, the big difference between the NBA and Major League Baseball, I think with baseball, because it's so wide open every year, the fans have a lot of hope and excitement in their local team. So they get more invested. Whereas in the NBA, we've seen a lot of teams with no real option but to have to tank and knowing that your team doesn't have much of a chance, there's going to be more hope put into that baseball team. Now, the flip side of this, Peter, is that the NBA on a national level seems to be doing better than baseball on a national level in terms of people go and they watch the stars. They'll watch a primetime NBA game, and they'll probably outrate a primetime MLB game. But it's just interesting to see the strengths and the weaknesses. And I think this year we should see a boost in terms of the viewership in the local markets.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think that was a really, really good comparison. And you're absolutely right. Baseball is about as wide open as it gets. I mean, you even think you have the Yankees and the Red Sox, or the Dodgers, who are kind of the powerhouse institutions, powerhouse teams. But still, obviously they haven't won the World. They didn't win the World Series this year. So you're absolutely right. Just the wide openness, it gives everybody hope. Like you said, I think that was really well said.
Thanks, man. I think, yeah, and the thing is like, so the weakness then for baseball is what ends up happening is when people's team gets out, they might not have as much interest because they have more interest in their local team than they do for the whole league.
Yeah, right. So then when it gets to the national level, then they've lost interest because it's not their team. Yeah, no, I agree with you.
Unless they're good, like me, and baseball is just like everything to them.
Yeah. There you go.
So, all right, let's move over to the West. Unless there was anything else you want to touch on here in the East.
No. All right. That was good.
We're doing well here, Peter. Okay, let's talk about the Tier 2 teams. Here in this conference, the mid-tier teams. Who are you looking at?
Well, the team I think is kind of right on the edge here is probably the Pelicans. And the reason that I did not have the Pelicans in my lower tier, which they very well could be there, is I think they have a little more excitement to them. Obviously, Zion Williamson brings a whole new level of excitement, but even without him, even with his injury, the other rookies they brought in, Jahlil Okafor's having a nice start to the season. Bringing in J.J. Redick, they obviously Jackson Hayes and Nickeil Alexander-Walker, two really exciting rookies. I think even without Zion Williamson, they still have a little bit of excitement to them. I don't know if they'll be a playoff team, but I think the excitement kind of makes them a little bit of a second-tier team. I think the Minnesota Timberwolves are probably this classic Orlando Magic type team. They're a solid team. They're not terrible. They're not going to finish last. They've got some good players. I don't know if they're going to be in the playoffs. They're going to hover around there. They'll be kind of in that area. They might make the playoffs. They might not. We'll see. And the team that I think is just on the cusp of being a contender, but I still really like, and I think will be in the playoffs, are the Dallas Mavericks. I think Luka Doncic is probably the best young player in the game right now, and he proved that again last night with his triple-double going ahead against LeBron. Porzingis obviously is another great piece. We just got to see how the rest of that roster comes together. I think they're probably that team that's probably going to be the 8-7 seed in the West. But I mean, it's there's so many good teams in this West. The team I'm a little stuck on right now is probably the Spurs. I think they probably fall right on the end of this line. I'll put them in the tier 2 category for now, just because I don't know if they have the star power. I like LaMarcus Aldridge, I like DeMar DeRozan, but compared to some of the other star power, some of the other teams, I think I'd probably put them in this category for now. I'm looking through here. I don't know if I missed anybody. I think that's probably it for now. Yeah, did I miss anybody, Jack?
I think that's pretty good because, I mean, this is a loaded Western Conference. And
it really is. Yeah. It really is.
I think that's pretty good. So, let's see. You had Dallas, Minnesota, and what was the other team?
Dallas, Minnesota. Oh, man, I'm blanking now. Spurs.
Anyone else?
And I guess the Warriors, the Golden State Warriors.
Yeah.
And honestly, they probably deserve their own category because they really, based on who's on their roster, could be in any one of these three categories. So I'll put them in the middle ground here for now, just because I think depending on who's playing and who they got, they're probably in this category because they could have none of their big three playing and then they're the bottom category. They could have all three. No, obviously not this season with Clay, but I'll probably put them in this tier 2 for now.
Yeah, I don't really know where to go with the Warriors.
Yeah, they're the wild card here.
All right, I guess here's a good question for the Warriors. Do you see D'Angelo Russell getting traded this season?
I don't. And the only reason I could say that he would get traded is if there's some off-court issue, some Kyrie Irving type situation. He doesn't fit well with management. He doesn't fit well with Steph and with Clay, But to be honest, with their injuries, they kind of really need his scoring punch. Because I love Steph Curry. I think he's one of the best players ever. I'm not confident that he can carry a team by himself. So I really think that they're going to need his scoring. And I don't know if the Warriors are quite ready unless Steph Curry's hand is causing to be out for a very significant period of time. I'm not sure if they're ready to throw in the towel completely, just with their championship pedigree. So I would think it would be hard for them to decide to move on from D'Angelo Russell. I basically was saying they're throwing this whole season away, and when Clay gets back, then they'll start from there. So I'll say no.
Well, Clay isn't going to play this year.
Well, I mean, it would be next season. I mean,
right?
So yeah. So basically, if they did decide to move D'Lo, they would basically say that that we're scrapping this whole season, and then next season when we get everybody back, then we'll go full force for the title.
I think what we'll see is we're going to see them for these next 2 months, seeing what they got. I think they're going to be playing. They're going to try to win. I think we get to the new year. All of a sudden, it's January, and things aren't going well. I'm not saying this is going to be the case. Look, D'Angelo blossomed when he was able to have the ball in his hands and create. And right. I think he's in a better situation to put up numbers and stuff now with Curry out. I think this might be a better situation and for his own personal success. So if the team is not winning, if they're maybe around 500 or slightly below 500 or who knows, if a team like, let's say Minnesota, who's in this category, wants to try to make a leap into the next tier and really needs a point guard and gives you a really nice offer, gives you several picks, maybe throws in a guy like Andrew Wiggins who could help with perimeter defense moving into the future with Durant gone now. I don't know. I think...
Yeah. It's a pretty good scenario you just posed right there.
Yeah, right? I mean, I feel like there are a couple of potential situations where I don't really think they got D'Angelo Russell because they were like, all right, we really, really want this guy. I think they were put in a perfect situation where they're losing the best player from their team, and because of where the Nets were, they were losing the best player from their team from the year before, and they had to in order to make everything work with Kyrie and with Durant, that they were able to acquire a very, very nice asset, and they might be able to turn that into something that could potentially set them up either better for the future or just make their team better for next year in terms of fit.
Yeah. No, I would agree with that. I think it was definitely the right decision to trade for him, and you're right. We kind of have to see how their team does. Or do they continue to win? Do they be around 500, or maybe they really, really struggle? Maybe they decide that they need to make some changes. It'll be a very interesting fall. That trade offer you pose with if the T-Wolves can give Wiggins and maybe a couple other draft picks and some young pieces, I mean it's pretty hard to say no to that.
Yeah, and I think that would be a really nice fit for Karl Anthony Towns to have a point guard of D'Angelo Russell's caliber to play alongside.
Absolutely.
And I think that
Absolutely.
could really give them a nice boost.
Yeah, I would not be surprised to see them be active and try to make that move, regardless of how the Warriors do. To see if that's a possibility.
I think everyone is really into Dallas this year. I think they might be another year away. We'll see. I think they're going to be on that edge of somewhere between 8 and 10 this year in terms of the 8 seed and the 10 seed.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think they probably need another year.
Maybe a little more at point guard too.
Yeah, absolutely. Luka Doncic is so special, and he's probably the best young player in the game. And so it's just hard to not be excited about the team when you have a talent like him. But yeah, I think they'll fight for a playoff spot, but whether they get it or not, it's still kind of up in the air.
For some reason, I thought they had acquired Goran Dragic. It's kind of like the same thing of me thinking the Heat got Chris Paul.
Goran Dragic is so hard to follow. He bounces around and he moves. He does a great job everywhere he goes, but he's just you're right. You never know where he is, really.
So that could be another potential trade partner because of where Miami's at. I don't know. It'd be interesting to see.
Yeah.
But Dallas is interesting to me. I like the Kings this year. I think the Kings could very well slide into that 8 seed and finally make the playoffs. This has been such a long drought for a team that when I was a little kid was really an awesome team with Chris Webber and Mike Bibby and Peja Stojakovic.
Yeah. I mean, it would be a great story for sure.
All right, let's talk about the top tier, and then maybe I can try to count off these teams and see if there's a fit for the Kings in these playoffs.
Maybe trying to get the Kings in there. All right, so we'll start with the obvious, the two LA teams. I mean, the Clippers and Lakers. It's going to be really fun to watch those two go at it. You got the Nuggets and the Blazers, who are kind of the forgotten teams, but both were in the Western Conference or semifinals and went to a 7-game series and bring everybody back and have added some. Both teams have. You got the Rockets, who added Russell Westbrook, and they still play their fun D'Antoni, a lot of threes, James Harden ball. And then you got the Utah Jazz that people also kind of forget about as well. But again, they were a contender last year. Donovan Mitchell hopefully has a really good season. They've added Mike Conley, which was a great move for them. So we expect them to do pretty well this upcoming season right there. So that was maybe 17? Is that something like that?
Yeah, and
oh geez, this West
Denver,
is crazy.
Yeah, Denver and Portland.
Yep, absolutely. I mean, Denver, Jokic is Nikola Jokic is probably the best player. You maybe never heard of him, never watched, but he is. I mean, he's really special. He is funny. We joke about him because he's not a great athlete, but he can dribble past, shoot. He's 7 feet tall. Jamal Murray, he had a great season last year. I expect him to take another step. Malik Beasley, Gary Harris, they've got a great roster. And they bring all their guys back. And they were the 2 seed. They were the second team in the Western Conference.
Yeah.
So I don't know how you can when they return everybody, how you could write them off. So I think they still are up there for a contender. And the Portland Trail Blazers, I mean, Damian Lillard and C.J. McCollum have become the era of consistency in the Western Conference. You know what you're going to get from them. And again, they were the 3 seed. People maybe forget, and then they went to the conference finals as well last year. Same deal.
And Lillard was playing with like a broken rib or something
incredible.
Like that.
They had Hassan Whiteside and Pau Gasol, which aren't exactly huge impact moves, but they should help out. They should provide some leadership and some rim protecting, and I think it's just hard for me when you return 2 consistent star players like that, and a team that went to the Western Conference Finals, you got them up there. Um, and I fully expect those two to be contenders once again. I really do.
I think if I had to go with one team for the number one seed, I think I would go Denver.
Above both LA teams. Wow. Yeah.
And you know why? Because look, is LeBron gonna play every night? Is
No, probably not.
Kawhi gonna play every night? Is Paul George gonna play every night?
Those Denver players are for sure, though.
Yeah. And I think you could also say the same thing, maybe Utah. I think both those teams have the potential to be like an excellent regular season team. Now, when I say that, that doesn't mean that I would pick them as my all-time favorite or absolute favorite to win the West. I think all these teams are very close together. We're going to talk about which teams we end up liking the most to come out of the West, but I think that I look at those two teams. I would not be surprised if that's the 1 seed and the 2 seed at the end of the season.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised there. I think there's some teams that are playoff teams and some teams that are regular season teams. I think that the Utah and Denver are definitely primed to be really great regular season teams for sure.
And let's see. I'm going to give you a good toss-up question here, Peter.
All right, here we go.
All right. So the Lakers, off to a good start, 4-1. I have some questions about them. I'm not as high on the Lakers as a lot of people are, and part of it is what I saw last year. I was not very excited about what I saw last year. Now, they did get Anthony Davis, but what I really think would have taken this team to the next level is adding a guard like Kemba Walker or D'Angelo Russell or Kyrie Irving, which would be so weird for Kyrie Irving to go back and be with LeBron or for D'Lo to go back to the Lakers. But I think that that's what would really work well with LeBron right now. I think him and Davis, you could look at maybe one of the best front courts in the league, but it's an interesting pairing just because it's not like either is an excellent three-point shooter. This is a three-point shooting league. And then you got another unlikely duo in Houston with Westbrook and Harden. Which team do you think wins more games this year?
I'll probably go with the Lakers, mostly because I think James Harden. I mean, he is a phenomenal player, but he has some nights where he scores 50, and he has some nights where he goes 1 for 15 from 3. And the Westbrook Harden duo, it worked well in Oklahoma City with Durant, but a little bit of a different style. And Harden, has played without him for such a long time. He's kind of had the full reins. And Westbrook has also had kind of the full reign. And so interesting to see how those two go together. I think the Lakers I think Anthony Davis is a little more consistent. I think LeBron James is a little more consistent. You're right; he might not play every night, but I think it will be close. But I think the Lakers probably end up winning more games in the regular season for sure.
This might be a bit of a hot take, but I would go the other way. I like Houston.
There you go. What is that?
And my rationale, I just want to say 2 years ago, the Houston Rockets went to the Western Conference Finals, led the Warriors, and they were up 3-2. We all know how that went. I never in a million years thought CP3 and James Harden were going to work together. And Daryl Morey is all about analytics, which is really interesting to see the NBA version of that, because analytics are something that we study so much in baseball. But Daryl's been very much ahead of the curve in several ways with valuing these analytics, and they've paid off well for him over the last couple of years. Not last year, not quite as well as the year before. And I don't know if, here's the thing. Obviously, with analytics, that can't measure team chemistry, that can't measure heart, that can't measure a number of things. But I just got a feeling that this duo is going to work well this year for the same reason that CP3 and Harden worked well. Look, CP3, not the same player as Russell Westbrook, for better, for worse. So that could, who knows? You bring in Dwight Howard. Dwight Howard wasn't a great fit with this team, so maybe it ends up being more like Dwight Howard than it ends up being CP3. But I'm excited about this. I think that this unit, these two guys, are going to gel well for this season. And now maybe in the long term, I don't know if it's going to be something super sustainable. There could be a similar falling out like the one that we just had with CP3. I don't know if this is going to last very long, but I think they're going to work it out well together this year. And I would not be surprised if the Rockets end up going deeper in the playoffs than the Lakers do.
I wouldn't be surprised by that either, but, it all remains to be seen. It will be very interesting to see how. I fully understand your confidence. I think it does have the potential to be a really, really incredible duo. But yeah, we'll see.
So last year, Houston won 53 games. The Lakers won 37. So they were 16 games better. And, I just have some questions just about LeBron and year 17. And I don't love the way that he acted with his team last year. I thought he kind of quit on them, and I don't think it was a good teammate. So I'm just, to tell you the truth, Peter, I'm quite at the point where I would put the Lakers as one of the elite teams in this conference. Now, look, when I say I think they have the ceiling to be, because they have LeBron James and they have Anthony Davis. Like, this team is going to be good. I just think it might take a little longer for it to work out. Yeah. And so I think this team is going to end up on the lower side of the play, around a 6 or a 7 seed, but they're going to be dangerous in the playoffs if they're peaking at the right time.
Yeah, I would not want to play them if they were a 6 seed. No way.
So that's my take on the Lakers. It's very, very different from how a lot of people see it, but I thought the Lakers were going to be that team last year. I thought they were going to be a top 5 team in the West, and I was really disappointed with what I saw. So who knows? And the other thing, Peter, is they have so many new guys here, like just so many new guys. I just think it's going to take a little bit for it all to come together.
Yeah, no. My thing is, I think Anthony Davis is in the prime of his career, and these other issues might come up. But I think when you just have a star like LeBron James and a star like Anthony Davis, I just think one will overcompensate for the other, and I think that gets them to 55 plus wins, just on those two alone. Now, to that other stuff, we'll see how that goes. When it comes to playoff time, maybe the newness and the fresh faces on the team and the lack of chemistry and the other issue that you brought up, maybe those things come back to haunt them in the playoffs. But I think it's just when we have a team with Anthony Davis and his star power, and I just think it's hard not to like them and not to have them do so well.
Yeah, for sure. I get you. So we'll talk about a couple other teams here. Portland Trailblazers, love what they did last year. I think if they can add one more guy, a solid number 3. Now, it doesn't have to be a superstar, but like we said, maybe a Kevin Love kind of guy. I think this team could really jump up into that number. I think they could end up being look, as constructed, they can win the West. But if they add that team, add a guy like Kevin Love, I like them even more.
Oh, I fully agree. If they get Kevin Love, I think they're definitely a top 3 team in the West. Lillard and McCollum are just so special, and just the fact that what they've done, just the two of them alone. If Kevin Love was added to this team, I think they would be a lot of people's favorites. They're just a team you just absolutely cannot write off, because they just what they're going to do, what you're going to get from them, and they're just such a fun backcourt tandem. But if I were them, I agree, I would be doing whatever I possibly could to try to get Kevin Love and try to add just one more scorer, preferably of course a front court scorer.
Yeah, and it seems like there's an unhappy guy every 3-4 months that wants to get traded. So we'll see. Maybe
Right.
there's another guy that's not even on the radar.
Right.
But who knows? Maybe they can cash in on one of those trades. A guy that I have been impressed with, and we'll see him get a little more run this year because Al-Farouq Amino, I think he's gone.
Yeah.
Nurkic is injured. Zach Collins, I was pleasantly surprised when we saw him last year. I was definitely someone who was a little skeptical just because when he got drafted, I looked at him as a bit of a project, but he seems to be coming along very nicely, and he's starting to take steps sooner than I anticipated him to.
Yeah, he was drafted, and there was right to be skeptical. He was drafted a lot on hype. I mean, he had a really good NCAA tournament for Gonzaga after kind of an okay freshman season, and he was drafted on just hype and potential. And
I think he came off the bench on that team too.
Yeah, he did, and so you just saw little pieces, little spurts of him, and that excitement got him drafted. But I think he did do a nice job, and if he is able to come along, I mean, obviously the weak spot on this team is the front court. So the more that they can do to solidify the front court, obviously the better it is, because you know what those guards are going to give you, and just anything you can add to that front court is just benefit. So having him come along would be huge for them.
Yeah, they've also had some bad luck in the front court because Nurkic got hurt last year, and another one people forget, but a guy that I liked a lot, going back to his days with Golden State, that they gave a nice contract to a few years ago, Festus Ezeli. It's just been riddled with injuries. He's not even in the league anymore.
Yeah, no, it's just that is some pretty bad luck.
Yeah. All right, let's talk about the team that everyone is talking about right now, and really, I gotta say, they are my favorite. But look, here's the thing. When I talk favorites, this is so wide open. This is not like we've talked about in recent years. But the LA Clippers, man, have you seen a team that has this kind of potential in terms of perimeter defense?
No, I think that's what people just forget. I mean, you have the star power for sure, but it's just Patrick Beverley, Landry Shamet. I mean, obviously Kawhi and Paul George. I mean, it's just it's unreal. And that's what they prided themselves on last year. They were a good perimeter defensive team. They guarded well. They played tough, and they brought back most of those pieces. And then you add 2 of the top 10 players in the NBA. I mean, it's which is why they're my favorites too. It's just because the toughness, the defensiveness, along with the star power. And they brought in 2 stars that kind of fit that mold a little bit. They're business type guys. They're going to guard. They're going to play tough. They're going to put the ball in the basket. They're not going to put their egos and their personalities in front of the way. They're guys that are there to win, and they go about their business. And it fits their culture really well.
I would agree. And look, we just saw Kawhi Leonard in the playoffs last year. He was unbelievable.
Unbelievable.
He seems to be taking the title of best player in the NBA. And he's a guy that I've been a big fan of for a long time. So it's been really cool to see him start to get that recognition. And if he ends up winning another title this year, just crazy. Just 3 different teams, 3 titles. And I mean, 3 titles in its own. That's unbelievable. But I mean, now in another situation, back home in LA, this is going to be so much fun to watch this team. It's a great situation for Kawhi to thrive, and
yeah, it is. They're going to be a very fun team to watch. There's no doubt about that.
So, do you have any concerns about this team? I guess I would add one, and I'll let you go after this. You could make a little bit of you could say, hey, what if one of these guys gets hurt? They've both had some injury issues in the past. I do think that if Paul George were to be out, I still think Kawhi could give this team a great boost in the playoffs, and they still can contend. But, I mean, that would definitely be tough if they had to lose PG, but especially if they had to lose Kawhi.
Yeah, that was the only thing that came to mind was one or both get hurt. And I agree. I think if you lose PG and you keep Kawhi, I think you still have a shot to contend. I don't think they're the favorites anymore. I don't think they win. But that's all that really comes to mind. But if they're fully healthy and nothing weird comes up or any weird issues, and you know how the NBA is, something weird might come up. I think they're absolutely the favorites.
Yeah, and I guess the other thing to love about Kawhi is he really helped restore balance to this league. If he had gone to the Lakers, oh my goodness.
Yeah. Oh yeah. He made the NBA fun again, and he definitely made a good decision. So
make the NBA fun again.
Yeah, there you go. Thank goodness for Kawhi.
All right, wow. Would you go with the Clippers as your pick to win the West?
Yes, I would go with the Clippers.
Who would be number 2 for you? Are you Lakers?
Yeah, I'm probably gonna say Lakers. But from there, I think the Nuggets are a really close third. I think that the Nuggets and the Lakers are almost on the same level to me. I see them as being like 2-3 and going 7 games. But if Portland makes any kind of move, I think they jump up there as well.
Yeah, and Utah. I mean,
yeah, I got Utah and Houston, and it's really tough from there. It's such a good conference, it really is.
All right, let's count this out here, okay? Both LA teams.
Yeah.
Houston, Denver, that's 4. Utah, 5.
And probably Portland.
Oh, Portland, my bad, 6. All right, so that leaves 2 more playoff spots. Can I get the Kings in there? That's the question.
I'm probably going to say no, but I know you're very high on the Kings. So.
Let's see. All right, so
I personally, I would probably put the Spurs in there, and I would probably put the Mavericks in there. And maybe the Warriors. We'll see how the rest of their season goes, but I like those teams a little bit better. But who knows? Maybe De'Aaron Fox has an amazing season, and the Kings find their way in there.
So I'm going to go Spurs, and I'm going to go Kings.
There you go. You got them in.
It will be interesting with Luke Walton, too. Yeah,
they're doing a lot of good things. I personally just think they're a couple of years away, but if they get to the playoffs, there you go. Man. You called it. You called it right now.
We'll have to play back this clip if that happens, or if it doesn't happen.
Yeah, right. There you go.
Let's see. Okay, so then in the East, you are going the Bucks.
Yeah, I'll go with the Bucks for right now.
Oh man, it's tough. It's really tough. I think the Bucks are the front runners, but I'm leaning a little towards the Celtics right here.
Yeah, and I can't really fight you on that, to be honest with you. I really can't. I absolutely see it.
I want to hear you rank these contenders in the East. Well, you got Bucks 1, Celtics 2. Would you have Philly 3, yep. Toronto 4?
Yep, that's exactly what I would have.
And then after that, how would you rank the rest?
Well, if we're going right now, I would probably go Pacers 5, probably Nets 6. That obviously, I think I would probably switch up that order a little bit based on Durant's health, and then I'll probably go Heat, Magic 7, 8. Yeah, that's probably, and then just having the Pistons kind of and the Hawks on the outside looking in.
Yeah, that sounds about right. I won't fight you on that.
Yeah, the obvious wild card is just Kevin Durant. I think I'd probably have the Nets a little bit higher, but as it stands right now, I think they're probably the 6th best team in the East.
Peter, any hot takes you got here?
Oh man, hot takes. Yeah, I got Tyler Hero, Rookie of the Year.
This is good. Yeah, let's do our award picks.
That's a hot.
That is a good hot take.
Not Zion, not RJ, not Ja Morant. I'm going with Tyler Hero, Rookie of the Year.
So Zion is going to be out for a while, and I really think that changes a lot of the way we look at this team, because if he was healthy, maybe they're that team that gets in as the 8 team above the Kings, above the Mavericks.
Yeah, I like the pieces they brought over from the Lakers. I want to see how some of their other guys develop. But Brandon Ingram's a great start. Lonzo Ball's having a great start. Josh Hart, all those guys, and obviously Zion's injury definitely hurts. And but yeah, if he is playing, obviously they're probably one of the most exciting teams in the NBA.
Yeah, and even without them, they're gonna be fun to watch. I really like this situation a lot better for Lonzo Ball. Just to get away from everything.
It's a little more low key.
Yeah.
Get away from the spotlight.
Get away from the spotlight. Get away from
just play basketball.
a person in his life who seems to put the spotlight on him even more.
Oh yeah, who shall also remain nameless.
Man, if he was listening right now, he would be livid.
We would know if he was listening right now. We would know.
I liked Ingram a lot coming out of that draft, and D'Angelo Russell, he developed nicely once he left the Lakers. So you wonder, could this be a Lakers thing?
Maybe it's the Lakers. Yeah, it's not Ingram or D'Lo. It's them.
Yeah, maybe there is something, and maybe it's change of scenery, better situation, or maybe just the way they're wired not to be in such a huge market. Now, Brooklyn is a big market, but Brooklyn wasn't getting the same kind of attention the Lakers have gotten.
Right. Yeah, we'll see. All
right, let's do our award picks. So I'm going to go Ja Morant, Rookie of the Year.
That's a good pick. I won't disagree with that. It's a good one.
Okay, Most Improved Player. How about that?
Oh, that is a tough one. Most Improved.
How about Ingram?
Yeah, that's a good one. I like Brandon Ingram. I'm trying to think if I missed anybody. Yeah, I like that one a lot, though. That's a good one. I'll go Jason Tatum. I say Jason Tatum.
Yeah, that's good. Or maybe Mitchell.
Yeah. Donovan Mitchell could be a good one too. I think Jason Tatum, if he becomes an All-Star, you got to go Most Improved for him.
Yeah, that's a good pick.
Or if the Celtics go to the NBA Finals, I think you got to go with him.
Yeah,
similar to how Siakam kind of grew and became a powerhouse, and that's why he won the award last year. Just his contribution to the finals. I think Tatum kind of a very similar season.
Do they vote? I thought they voted before the playoffs.
Oh yeah, I might be wrong. But it definitely solidified it when he won the award. We were watching the finals, and you were like, yeah, okay, that guy's the most improved without a doubt.
Okay, let's see. Sixth man. That's too hard.
I'll go Montrezl Harrell for the Clippers.
Okay. All right, I like that.
And another good one would probably be Eric Gordon for the Rockets. Those two are probably my top two. I'll go with Montrezl Harrell, though. I think he's gonna. I'm surprised he doesn't start for the Clippers right now, but that's who I would go with.
Yeah, I like the Eric Gordon pick. I'll go with Eric Gordon.
Yeah, very consistent. Always does a nice job.
Defensive Player of the Year.
Defensive Player of the Year. I'll probably stick with Rudy Gobert. He's just I've been talking a lot about consistency, but I really admire consistency. Very gifted defender, and I think we were talking a lot of positive things about Utah, and I think if they're going to continue to have a good season, he's got to be the same defensive presence. So I'll stick with Rudy Gobert.
So I would go with Kawhi, but I don't know if he's going to log enough games, because last year I don't think he was even on the all-defensive first team, and I think he was penalized because he didn't play enough. I think if he plays enough, it's him, but if he does not, I think that it could be one of his teammates, and I'm going to go with Patrick Beverley, because I think he's going to get a lot more attention playing on this team this year, because they are going to be the favorites for much of this season, and they're going to be celebrated. So I think P. Bevs is going to, like he's going to get it.
That's a good one. I like it.
Thank you, sir. All right, MVP.
I'm going with Kawhi. I think this is it's slowly and surely becoming his league. And I guess the only issue would be if he didn't play enough games, but I'm optimistic. I think the Clippers are going to have a great season, and typically the one of the best teams with the most regular season wins gets the MVP. So, and they like to take turns in the NBA now. So,
yeah,
I think it's Kawhi's turn. I think he wins it.
We could see him ending up playing more games here because I think he's just overall, this is going to be the happiest version of Kawhi that we've seen.
the warmest version of Kawhi.
Yeah.
You mean to say? Yeah. I think he's due for a great season. I really do, and I think it's slowly and surely becoming his league. And again, weirdly, they don't like repeats anymore. So I think Giannis we can write him off no matter what kind of season he has. Unfortunately, they don't like giving it to the same person consistently. So
Kawhi should have gotten it back in. This is an unpopular opinion. Back in 2017, he had an amazing year. He ended up going to Westbrook because he was averaging the triple-double. But yeah. I was a big fan of just what he was doing offensively and defensively that year. And what I think makes Kawhi so special is just the fact that you could count on him on both ends at the end of the game. If you want to stop from a guy, do you pick anyone other than Kawhi? And if you want a bucket, maybe Lillard, maybe there are a couple other guys that you could toss in there, but
Kawhi's about as good as it gets.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a good point.
Okay, so I'll give an MVP pick because I'm going to operate under the assumption that Kawhi doesn't give them enough games, that they're going to be disenchanted with him as a result of that. Maybe not disenchanted, but he's not going to get the MVP votes because he didn't play enough. So I'll give you another name. How about Nikola Jokic?
Oh, that would be awesome. That would be awesome. I hope he gets it.
I mean, if Denver ends up being the team with the most wins in the West this year.
Oh, he's got it. It's his.
Yeah,
for sure.
I think that's
That's a big if.
But I think that could very well happen. I think they're in a good situation to win a lot this regular season.
Well, if that does happen, I think Jokic has a great shot.
Just like that, we previewed the NBA season for the 2019-2020 calendar.
That was awesome. That was good. We went through a lot.
We did. Is there anything else that we didn't touch on that you wanted to bring up here?
No, I think the biggest storyline we hit on is that it's going to be a really fun season. It's going to be really entertaining, and I think it's good for the league, good for the sport, and I'm excited. A lot of good storylines to follow.
Yeah, and Peter, I really have been disenchanted with the NBA in itself for the last 2 years.
Yeah, rightly so. I mean, it's been very stagnant, lacking excitement, and fully understandable.
And I used to be an NBA junkie, or at least I have been in the past, and I really started to move over and find my love for college basketball and even a greater appreciation there in recent years. But this is the most excited I've been for an NBA season in quite some time.
Yeah, me too. It's gonna be a lot of fun.
But hey, it's gonna be a lot of fun. College basketball games being played in just a few days, so we'll have a preview out for that. I'll have Evan Myers joining me. It'll be a lot of fun. Everyone, you're gonna want to listen.
All right, well, I'll be one of them.
Thanks, Peter. All right, Peter, you did an excellent job today on the show.
Thank you.
Before I send you off, is there anything here that you'd like to plug, anything that you'd like to promote? Would you like to throw out your Twitter handle, anything of that nature?
Yes, all my social media is just P_Funk2, Instagram and Twitter. I'm definitely most active on Twitter, so that's the best way to find me, best way to interact with me. And then Valpo basketball starts Tuesday night, ESPN3, ESPN Plus. Actually, we have a good mid-major matchup that not a lot of people are talking about against a very good Toledo team. So for you college basketball junkies that are going to listen to Jack's preview next week, I think it's there's the Duke Kansas game, but there's also a lot of good mid-major basketball going around. So that game's one of them.
Yeah,
so I'll plug that.
Will that be going on during the Duke in Kansas and Michigan State, Kentucky games?
I unfortunately don't know what time those games are playing, but Tuesday night, 7:00 Eastern, is Valpo Toledo. So,
okay.
If you really consider yourself a college hoops junkie, that would be check out some good mid-major action. So,
I'm going to pull that up real quick. I want to see. We're going to have a game at 11 a.m. Baylor.
Oh, jeez.
It's playing.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah. UCA? I don't know who that is. Oh, Central Arkansas. It's on ESPN Plus. So, yeah, it's always fun when they have those early morning games.
That's awesome.
And then, let's see. Okay, so Duke and Kansas is going to be at 6. So that's the same time as the Valpo game. So here's what I want everyone to do. Get your laptop, and you can double screen. You can put it Duke, Kansas on the big screen. You can put Duke, Kansas on the little screen. Put Valpo on the big screen.
There you go.
Peter, thank you so much for joining me. This was a lot of fun, man. We're going to have to do it again soon.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure as always.
So that does it for my conversation with Peter Funk on an NBA preview show for the ages. You heard it all here first. So in June, I want you to be tweeting me and Peter. My Twitter is @JackVitaShow. You heard Peter's Twitter. Tweet at us and tell us how wrong we were or tell us how right we were. If you like what you heard on the podcast today and you'd like to hear more, make sure you subscribe to the podcast on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, wherever you get your podcasts, and you will never miss an episode. The folks who subscribe are the ones who get the podcast when it first comes out. It actually takes a little bit for it to go all the way to the Apple Store on iTunes. So it'll come faster to you if you subscribe. You'll never miss out, and you won't have to rely on my social media posts to know that there's an episode available. So go ahead and do that. Leave a 5-star rating and review on iTunes. That does a great deal of help. It's great for the podcast, helping me get the show out there to other people. So that's a way that you can support the show. Thank you to everyone for listening. Coming up, as mentioned, Evan Myers will join me for a college basketball preview show, very similar to this one. Should be a lot of fun. Last week, I had a great interview with Leslie Neese from Survivor China. Really cool interview just about what it's like to be on a reality show. What is it really like? What is reality TV? How real is it? And how do you get on a show like that? And how does it change your life? It was really, really neat conversation. Also hearing her talk about her Christian faith. So go ahead, check that one out if you missed it. Also recapped with the World Series with Chad Votherine last week. So if you're not ready to say goodbye to baseball, at least you can enjoy that podcast before we start covering the MLB offseason. So had a great time podcasting today. Hope you all enjoy this episode. I will be talking to you guys soon. Until next time, I'm Jack Vita. Bring in the dancing lobsters.